Hello and welcome to Too Fast, Too Forever. There's all kinds of family. We chose this one. This is episode 64, Fast and Furious Spy Racers. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too, and this episode is brought to you by Anim School. Anim School is an online school devoted to teaching the many skills used in 3D productions from gaming to commercials to film. They teach students who want to make characters, modeling and rigging, or make them move and act, animation. Thank you to Anim School.
Such a fitting sponsor to talk about, to kick off, first of all, 2020, a new decade, a new year, a new decade of Too Fast, Too Forever. Yeah. 2020 Too Fast, Too Forever.
Oh, I like that.
We're also kicking off with the Netflix series Spy Racers, which just came out the day after Christmas. So I hope if you are listening to this that you have seen all 8 episodes, which basically is like a long movie, which we will get to after the break.
It's not that much.
Before we get there, before we talk about all of our thoughts and all of the fast connections, Joe, extracurricular activities, what have you been up to? I feel like we just recorded. I don't know when we recorded, but I feel like we just recorded. But like, what have you been up to? I know you took at least one trip.
Yeah. We went this weekend to DC to visit Rachel's parents, like a post-Christmas visit. So we went down there, and I also snuck in a trip to the last Steelers game of the season. They lost, but it didn't matter because they would have not been in the playoffs anyways. It was rainy, but we had ponchos, and we still had a really good time. I got to see one of my buddies that lives in Baltimore, went to the game, still had fun. It was just a good time, so I still enjoyed myself.
Cool. Yep. Anything else of note? I saw that Matt flew up, I think, right?
Yeah, Matt was here, but he was here for Christmas, and he actually came with me to DC and then to Baltimore, and he came to the game with me. He went there, then I visited another friend that lived in Baltimore. M&T Bank Stadium is fucking awesome, by the way.
Is it near the Inner Harbor, or is it not near the Inner Harbor?
It's not that far from, like, Baltimore. Like, my buddy lives in Federal Hill, which is, like, another big neighborhood there. It's walking distance from his house. Like, it's like a 20-minute walk, but he can walk it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? You can get there and home pretty easy if you live in, like, one of the neighborhoods. Like, it's not as far as, say, like, MetLife from New York, you know? Like, it's far.
Oh, yeah, it's right next to Camden Yards, and it's right near, like, it's like 3 or 4 blocks away from the Inner Harbor, which is sort of the touristy, like, where all the restaurants and everything are. So, yeah, that's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, they just remodeled it, so, like, they have all these, like, cool food things in there. There's, like, a ton of big screen TVs and, like, projection, like, in the concourse. Like, they have, like, huge TVs in the concourse, so, like, if you go out to get a beer or something, you can still see the game really well. The seats were good. I posted a picture. I'm sure you saw it.
Yeah.
We were, like, 5 rows back because nobody was going because Baltimore sat all their good players, and they were already, like, locked in, so.
Again, we're in a weird sort of in-between where, like, by the time this episode comes out, the Vikings will have probably lost to the Saints or had a miraculous comeback and, won down in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the future lies in limbo, I guess. I have not done a ton since we last recorded because my sister was up. We had some good family dinners. And then on Saturday after she left, I went to see Uncut Gems again, which I talked about and I loved. And then I saw the new Little Women movie, which I also loved. And so
Cool.
If you can see either of those, go see either of those. Not you for Little Women because I don't think that's your speed at all.
Probably not.
Yeah, it was cool. And then we're recording earlier in the week because we have to do another peek behind the curtain because I'm going away next week and I'll have things to talk about in the next episode where I have to record another thing sort of later in this week. So we're moving things up. And hoo boy, does feel like we just recorded because we kind of just did record. But we're here again to talk about a thing. We have a Patreon page here on the show, patreon.com/toofast2forever or just toofast2forever.com. Thank you to Cassie Wilson, Jake Freer, Ben Milliman, Nick Burris, Alex Ellenin, and Justin Kleinman for supporting us over there. Thank you all so very much. We're getting ever closer to lap 6 and lap 7 in our next rounds of Patreon picks. So I put out an email to Ben Milliman, and I also put out we sent Jake a message because we have the picks for Alex and Nick for what they want us to cover next year.
Yeah.
But we're still waiting on the other 2. So it's not too late if you're out there and you have something that you want us to watch. You can head over to patreon.com and get that thing, put your words in or whatever. Let us know what you want. But go to toofast2forever.com for that. I'm going to go check our Apple Podcast ratings and reviews. No new ratings, no new reviews. If you want to do something very kind, very special for us, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review if you wouldn't mind. We can read it on air.
Please.
Thank you. Before we get to the email bag, and there is one email to read, I do want to point out there is this week, as we're recording this, last week as it comes out, Mark Maron had a podcast episode on Monday the 30th with this woman named Shauna Duggins,
Okay,
who
who's
is
that?
a stunt woman and a stunt coordinator. He knows her through Glow because she does a lot of the coordination of stunts on Glow, the wrestling show. But
Okay.
specific to, I think it's an awesome interview because it's a look at a thing in Hollywood that everybody kind of knows about, but nobody really knows how it really works. I don't think, and so it was
Stunts?
fascinating. Yeah,
Okay.
that was cool. But then she's talking about how she does like Marvel movies, she's done like MCU movies, she's done this, she's done that, and she
Go
talks about
ahead.
how she's doing Fast Five and she was driving the NSX at the beginning when they're busting Dom out of the bus. I don't want to spoil the story if you want to listen to that, but there's a really cool story, kind of a scary story about that. So Shauna Duggins, it's like an hour-long interview. It's really, really great if you want a little bit more insight, because she's got a lot of great stories about just being a stunt woman and how it all works, but also
That
the
sounds
movies
really
that she's
cool.
worked on. It's awesome. So Mark Maron's podcast, WTF, the Shauna Duggins episode from December 30th. I would say check that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. This is one of these things that I always imagine is like, oh wow, this is really, really safe. Like you're like, yeah, I'm sure that they have like all these engineers that like look at this and you're like, nah, it's probably like a bunch of people just doing it. Like there's safety involved, but at the same time it's like a lot of crazy people doing wacky stuff.
She does a really good job of talking about the safety precautions and how, like, basically a lot of it is like you're literally trusting someone else with your life and how she won't do it with
Mhm.
certain people and whatever, or wants to make sure that she knows who's rigging things up because she has gotten hurt and all this different stuff. But then there's like people just mess up while they're doing something, and again, don't want to ruin the story of Fast Five, but she almost died while making Fast Five,
Wow.
so things almost broke bad in a very, very bad way.
Didn't one of the stunt doubles in Fast 9 recently get like really, really injured?
I think they stopped shooting. I think, yeah.
Yeah, he got like, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you are like she's talking about how she's doing 80-foot jumps onto or 80-foot falls onto like an airbag. She's talking about how she's getting lit on fire. She's talking about how she's like in these crazy car stunts. It's as safe as it can be, but you're also still doing crazy things,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
and things
like
can
we
go
always
bad.
imagine, like, oh man, like this. I'm sure they had 50 people there, but it's like you're still on fire, you know. So
So I think if you're interested in all or at all in that, go check that out. And she was also talking about sort of second unit stuff. And one of the guys that she was training with is also does a lot of the second unit stuff on Fast and Furious, which is mostly all the kind of pickups with like body doubles and stunt doubles and action scenes where the main actors necessarily aren't involved. So there's a lot of sort of tangential Fast and Furious stuff in the interview. So go check that out if you have an hour.
yeah, sounds good, man.
Especially since this episode is probably going to be, I mean, who knows? But since this episode will probably be a little bit shorter, if you need a little bit more time in your podcast week, go check out Mark Maron's podcast from last week. Okay, we have an email address here on the show, family@cageclub.me. Joe, one email today.
Okay.
New emailer, but not a new listener.
Ooh,
Someone we know has been
who is
very
it?
active on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page, on our Twitter page. Jason
Okay.
Dickinson. You know Jason, I know Jason, everybody knows
Yes.
Jason.
Yeah. We've messaged before. He sends us messages all the time. Sends us cool pictures, his
Mm-hmm.
collection. I know exactly who it is.
Yep, Jason, subject line, the Fast and Furious franchise. He says, "Hey guys, what's up? I love y'all so much. I love the Fast and Furious franchise. I watch Fast and Furious every weekend. Man, I can't wait for Fast and Furious 9. Stay fast, stay furious."
Same. I can't wait for Fast and Furious 9. I think he just sent us a message as like the trailer's coming out soon.
Yeah, it comes out the 30th or whatever at that concert in Miami. So, oh
That's
boy,
right.
it's
Yeah.
getting close.
Yeah, we're gonna
Get
get
to
there.
F2F to Miami.
Thank you for writing in, Jason. I'm glad you're listening. We wonder, if people that write in listen, so it's good to hear back from you.
I think he mostly watches on YouTube, and this is a friendly reminder that if you want to, if it's easier for you to listen on YouTube, every one of our podcasts is up there. There's no, the video is not a video, just a still image. But
Yeah.
if you want to go check it out at youtube.com/C, as in channel, /2fast2forever, you can go do that thing.
That's actually a good reminder. You update it, so it exists.
Yeah, we have a lot of subscribers over there. It feels like I was looking through, and it feels like people. I think it's mostly bots watching over there, plus a couple
I
actual
think I
real
think it's a
people.
lot of people try to find the movies and
Yeah.
find us, and then click play, and they're like, "God damn it!" and then they turn it off. Probably.
For some reason, people are most interested in finding Tokyo Drift, and I don't know why that is.
Same. Yeah, I noticed that all
But
the Tokyo
there's
Drift
one
episodes.
of our video, like most of our videos have like 10 or 20 or 50 views. Like it's not a lot. People are finding it for whatever reason. But then there's like one Tokyo Drift video that has like 40,000 views, and I don't know why. And then
Yeah.
other Tokyo Drift ones have like 2,000 views, which is still like way more. Like I don't know. Like there's a middle ground, and I don't understand how people use our stuff on YouTube. But
I don't know, man.
on the streets, news about the Fast and Furious universe. I don't think much has happened since we last recorded. There is rumor, though, that there's
What?
going to be a Fast and Furious Lego figurine, maybe about
Oh,
the
that's
Dodge Charger
right.
next
Yeah,
year.
this will be a lot of fun. I think I told this story before that Rachel was building a Lego the one time. Like she
Maybe.
like never grew. She like didn't grow up with the Legos. Like I remember like as a kid, like I fucking loved Lego
Yep.
sets.
Yep. Me
You
too.
too? You were
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And like this is like one of the main things I would get on Christmas is like a really big ass Lego set, and it'd take you like a day or two to put it all together. And so she never did this, and her cousins got her one for Christmas last year, and she put it together. She was like, "This is so awesome," and like really into it. It was kind of cool that she like just discovered Lego now, and now they make all these sets for adults, like the Technic sets. We might have to get this Fast and Furious Lego set when it comes out.
Yeah, I never really grew up with the sets as much as just I remember my dad got from a friend. I think just used because I think his friend's son or whatever, had grown out of Legos, and so I just had all these space Legos. So I just had like the entire it was at one point like the entire from the '80s I think whatever space set that I just played with all the time, and then I had just a big old box of plain
Randoms.
Legos or whatever. Like I think I sort of got to the point where once I realized like what money actually was, and I was like, oh, like I like Legos, but I like video games more, and I'd rather have like $100 in video games as opposed to like $100 in whatever the gigantic set was. You know what I mean? Like once
Yep.
I basically had a concept of money, I was like, oh no, this is not what I want. Like if you're gonna spend money on me, like spend it on something else, and I'm actually going to
Yeah, like this is cool, but not as cool as
right
video games.
buy me Sega Genesis games, please.
True.
I don't think there's been any other news. Like we were saying, last episode, I think we're going to be in a little bit of a black hole for the next month or
Until
so
the
until
trailer
that new
comes
trailer
out.
comes out.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, the new series came out. So if you
Keep
somehow,
listening.
yeah, if you've not been listening, if you didn't read the episode name, the new Netflix series is out. We're going to be talking about that on this very episode. So go check that out. Any other news that you remember that you've seen? Because I don't think there is.
No, not that I've seen. I think we're gonna be a little bit of a lull. Like, no, I don't even have like random character news. Like, you know what I mean? Like actor news and
Right.
stuff. So
It's that time of the year where things sort of quiet down across the board. So that's not a bad thing.
true. Yeah.
All right, Joe, the last thing we have to do before we take a break and talk about Spy Racers is talk about the Fast and Furious minute
Ooh.
29. So I got two titles here. I want your
Ooh.
take on which of these, or if you have another one.
I
Either
did.
what the hell was that all about, or it's an amazing machine.
I liked It's an Amazing Machine. When I heard it, that's what I.
Okay,
That's because like the way Lance delivers that is so perfect.
cool. It's an amazing machine.
It's an amazing machine. He's like so like constipated and like angry and like serious, and he's trying to deliver this line. He's like, "It's an amazing machine," and he seems like he's like on meth. It's great.
Dominic, Brian, meet Johnny Tran, the guy in the snakeskin pants. That's his cousin Lance. So when you gonna give me a shot at the Honda 2000 of yours?
This your ride? It was. It's his now.
No, it's not. I haven't taken delivery.
That's nobody's car. Somebody put in the wrench time. What do you think, Lance?
It's an amazing machine.
Yes, indeed. Let's go. I'll see you in the desert next month. Be ready to have your ass handed to you.
Yeah, you're gonna need more than that crotch rocket.
I got something for you. What the hell was that all about?
Yeah, so this is a minute. I think again works as a really well self-contained
Yes.
minute, but there's not a lot here for you. We were saying that like in terms of the things that
No.
you normally look for, there's not a lot here for you.
No, it's not because it's one of these conversation minutes where it's like a lot of close-ups on their face, blur the background so you're not distracted, and it's just like back and forth conversation leading up to it. So no, there actually isn't a lot here for me, but I did find some cool things. But go ahead, bring us through the general stuff.
Yeah, so in the minute, as you just heard, Johnny Tran and Dom talk. Johnny tries to intimidate Dom. Johnny Tran and his crew leave. That's basically the gist. That's all the dialogue.
But you asked last minute if we get Lance's name coming up.
Yes. And
so
so,
we
yeah,
did.
here. So Johnny is
They
named
say it
because
twice.
last minute, Vin kind of mumbles Johnny.
Yeah.
But he says, this is Johnny Tran. Meet Johnny Tran, the guy in the snakeskin pants. That's his cousin Lance. So we learn that they're cousins. We learn that they're named. But what's interesting to me, that entire line of dialogue where he's talking about this is Johnny Tran, that's Lance, it's all said by Dom while we're focused on Brian, as Brian kind of like looks around a little lost. And it feels to me like that's a very ADR, like they're like, oh, we don't have enough explanation of who these people are. Let's add a line in here that Vin can read after we finish shooting, and we just have this footage of Brian looking around, but we don't have the footage of Dom saying it because he never actually said it on set. Because it almost
think
feels
so,
like
too.
there's not enough explanation or clarification of like who these people are. Because he said very briefly, like we talked about last minute, Johnny's name. Somebody says, oh, Johnny says, what do you think, Lance? So, like, Lance has the name, but again, it might be like, well, who are these people? How are they related? It might not be this case, but it feels to me very apparent that this is like oh shit, we didn't explain who these people are well enough. Let's add in a clarification line of dialogue after the fact, and we just have this like footage of Brian like, huh? Huh?
I think so too. I'm completely with you. I think I noticed it at the line when he's like, "You're gonna need more than that crotch rocket," and then Johnny's like, "Oh, I got something for you." That one seems like it was ADR too, because he seems like he's just like putting his helmet on, and it looks like his mouth is moving, but it looks like it says more than what is said. Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing as you were.
And in that regard, they kind of allude to race wars. We have not seen race wars yet.
No, they say the desert, in the desert.
Yeah, and they're just talking about. It sort of sounds menacing. Like we don't know what it is. I mean, I guess it's in this world. I mean, we also have not seen in the next minute, probably, unless there's a minute that we're not remembering, we're going to see Johnny and Lance and the crew shoot up the car, right?
They leave and then they come back around. So
Right.
I think that we're right before that. Is the car going to explode yet?
It's either going to be it's at the end of next minute or maybe the middle of the next minute. I don't know.
We might get like, oh shit, Nos, like
Right.
right at the end of the next minute. But we got like a minute of them coming around, shooting up the car, those guys running away. I think that he says, oh shit, Nos. This is my guess for next minute. He says, oh shit, Nos, but it doesn't blow up until the next minute.
I'm going to guess. I mean, I'm losing all sense of time over like what a minute actually is. Like
Yes.
some of these feel really long and some of these feel
Yeah,
like
true.
nothing happened. And I have a really hard time. If you're going that way, I guess I'll just take the it all happens next minute.
Okay.
They go, but I just don't know. Who knows?
Yeah.
But I do like that there's like this sort of the menacing, like, I'll see you in the desert next month. It's like, well, what does that mean? And like, it sounds innocuous because like they're just racing, but then we're about to see him
True.
shoot up a car, so it's a whole other thing. You know what I mean?
Yep, I agree. Oh, but we have to get him to explain what the hell was that all about too. So we got like a minute of dialogue, like a couple lines of dialogue between
Yes.
Dom and Brian.
Yeah, I just don't know how much of an explanation. We'll see. We will see next minute. My only other real note here is that Johnny is wearing his helmet has like a green emblem, like a neon green emblem on top. It kind of looks like a dragon. It kind of looks like the Caduceus logo, which is like the doctor, the two snakes.
It reminded me of Vince's tattoo. Just this like the symmetry. You know what I mean? Old symbol type of thing.
It's some kind of like snake or serpentine or some kind of menacing thing on the middle of his helmet.
Yeah.
Lance, I was saying before, or last minute, he has kind of got like that, like I don't know if I said it, it's in the document, but he's got like this kind of like loose, sort of flowing, weird kind of like ghillie style shirt. Like it's not buttons, it's not zipper, it's just kind of like tie at the top, like it's like a tie shirt, and it's like a paisley pattern. He's got the snake pants on, like he is taking bold swings with his fashion here. And
It's
I don't
so
know if they're
great.
hinting at if this is just 2001 fashion, if maybe Lance is gay or dresses like metrosexual, because that was probably a term that was used in 2001 a
Yes.
lot. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
Dom points out like the guy in the snakeskin pants. Like it's hard not to notice them. You know what I mean? Like he points that out. Like oh, that guy over there that you're probably looking at the snake pants. That's Lance.
Yes. I don't know either. But I think Lance has a girl on the back of his motorcycle, so. But I mean, who knows?
Who knows? It's a very bold fashion choice. I think we can leave it at that.
That's true.
But what did you notice in terms of cars and car details? And did you catch any signs this minute?
I didn't catch really any signs. When they drive away, there's two tractor trailers. There's a red one and a blue one. The blue one says PIC on it. I don't know what that stands for.
I saw that on the door or something, right?
Yeah. I caught the license plate of the blue Yamaha, a California license plate, 5E9172.
Okay.
And the coolest thing that I wanted to tell you, you mentioned last time that they had this goofy backpack, right?
Yep.
I looked and I found exactly which backpack it is. Did you click it? Did you see it?
I did. I saw it. Yeah, very cool.
Okay, so it is a .65 Sweden, kind of like Victorinox Swiss Army. It's a hardshell motorcycle backpack. It's a Bolt Bobbly GTX 25L. You can actually still buy one from that company, and they look exactly the same. They're like 300 and
315 to 340. Yeah, it's not cheap.
it's not cheap. It's pretty expensive.
We just got to have .65 sponsor an episode, and maybe they will send us a couple.
Oh, that's a good idea. Damn, I can't believe they didn't sponsor this episode.
Right? The only other thing we need to figure out with this minute is what the trivia question is going to be. There's two different questions I have here. I
Okay.
don't know if I like one over the other, if you have a better one, but either what car of Johnny's does Dom covet? Because he talks about, when do I get a shot at that Honda 2000? Or
That's a good call.
what is Lance's? This is an easier one, defining piece of clothing, which would be those snakeskin pants.
Well, I like the snakeskin pants.
All right.
But I mean, the Johnny Tran one is good too because we see the car later, so it's more of like a broad one. What do you want? Like more of a broad one? But I guess Lance is wearing these pants a couple times too. So
Yeah, I'll just say so red helmet, red biker helmet,
yeah,
snakeskin pants, feathered boa,
yeah, that's a really good one.
or
Aviator glasses.
okay. Oh, I also want to say the Motorcycle to Saigon song by BT from the score comes back in here at the end. So I'm guessing it's probably going to play until the
Car
explosion.
blows up.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so too.
That's all I got. Is there anything else you want to say about this minute?
No, I was just excited that I found the backpack for you. I thought
Yeah.
that was pretty cool. Yeah.
What did you search? Did you just search for motorcycle backpack or motorcycle backpack
I
from
can't
Fast and
give you
Furious?
all my secrets.
Okay.
I know I searched for hard shell motorcycle backpack and then looked at pictures until I found the one that looked like it. That
Cool.
was it.
Well, good
Yeah.
finding. Good digging.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick break and then come back to talk about Fast and Furious Spy Racers.
Welcome back to Too Fast, Too Forever. This is episode number 64, Pit Stop, Fast and Furious Netflix Spy Racers. This episode's brought to you by Anim School. Anim School has two programs. In the 3D character program, you learn how to make characters, modeling their shape and putting in their structure to make them bend and move and have expression. In the 3D animation program, you learn how to make them move and act. Anim School's teachers are experienced professionals in the industry. Thank you, Anim School. That's animschool.com.
Very, very cool. Well, like we said, we are here to talk about the Netflix series, the Netflix original series, Fast and Furious Spy Racers. 8
Yes.
episodes, half-hour episodes, really like 22, 23 minutes.
Yeah, they're
all
not
hitting
super
Netflix
long.
the day after Christmas, at least here in the United States. I'm sure it's probably mostly
Close.
worldwide, if not everywhere. Joe, what did you think of Spy Racers? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Before we go too in-depth, sort of high-level thoughts, what did you think of Spy Racers?
I'll use it how I described it to my friend group. I said that I was watching Fast and Furious Spy Racers. Actually, Matt was like, "Oh man, I haven't downloaded that yet," and I was like, "This feels a lot like a cartoon that is doing a lot of fan service. It's a cartoon for children that is doing fan service to Fast and the Furious fans." And he was like, "Oh, so it's not like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse," and I was like, "Not at all. It's not like a high level cartoon. I don't think that this would win an Oscar if it was one movie. It's a kids cartoon that's like a Saturday morning cartoon that has a lot of Fast and Furious little tidbits in it. So I did enjoy it. I wouldn't push it on anyone, but if you're a Fast and Furious fan, I would say you'd probably like it.
I think that's a good description. I think what's tough about this is that we are very firmly not the target audience, and so there's a lot
No, it's
of like,
for children, for
yes,
sure.
there's definitely like there's stuff that's winking at and that is you could pick up, and there's at least one or two things that I was like, oh, this is maybe like canon in the Fast and Furious universe, which we will get to.
Same. I have some too.
It's not something that I really want to rewatch. Dom is in
Same.
it, a couple episodes, which is cool. But
Yes, he's in the first and the last one.
what's frustrating to me, the thing that would keep me from going back to this, is I think it's just sort of a function of the Netflix series as a whole. Instead of having kind of 8 standalone episodes, it's essentially like a 3-hour movie. Like it almost feels like it's meant to be sat through in one sitting, which I basically did.
binged?
I split
Yeah,
it up over
same.
like with an hour break in between. It's too much. Like it's too long because it's not deep enough or intricate enough. Like it is a movie. Like it doesn't tell. Like it's just. It feels like it's trying to tell a movie story, but it's not as in depth as a movie. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, well, it's for kids. You know, they have to keep the story kind of basic, right?
In that regard, like I wish that maybe that there was like a so the entire show is about Tony Toretto, who's Dom's cousin. It's hard to tell how old these kids are, other than like they're
He
now
can drive.
spies. They can drive, but they're also like still in school.
Not all
like,
of them.
It's just we're not going to answer that question because it's only going to cause more questions.
Yeah. They're like racers. They build their own cars, but they're young kids.
And they are recruited by Ms. Nowhere, which we will get to,
Yes.
to help them take down this Shashi and Layla crew who sort of are, we don't really know from the
Shifter.
beginning that they are poised for world domination. And they're looking for this thing called the skeleton key. It's this face mask that allows you to basically control all technology. And I was like,
Spoilers.
but
Jeez.
it
I'm
is what
just
it
kidding.
is. We all know it's
Yeah.
gonna be spoilers. Like it's also, it was frustrating to me on a level that like, can't we have a Fast and Furious story where we're not saving the world? Even a kid show, like we have to be saving the world. And
Yes, you have to
also,
be
it
saving
has
the
to be
world.
about hacking and computers and technology again. It's so on brand that I was like, I wish that this was like goofier and wackier and more over the top and sort of more standalone. Like you could have a through line, but have each episode kind of be like, well, now they're racing against these people and now they're doing this. It just feels like once you get to like episode 3 or something, it's like, oh, these last 6 episodes, these are all like a single thing that you kind of have to watch together because it's one story.
Yes. Like we've said before, the stakes are so high. I was hoping, like you mentioned, that we would have a low stakes thing. We could have made this as kids racing, but it also had to be saving the world against, which is essentially God's eye.
Right. Especially in comparison or, in used in conjunction with God's Eye, it would be like nonstop or like you could control God's Eye with this or whatever. But basically, they show animation like they're stopping nuclear war from this happening. It's just like you get this thing and they're hacking every device in like the Western United States and like they're basically poised on world domination. It's like, why? Again? Why? Really? What?
Yes.
My biggest takeaway about this entire series is that it really made me want to watch Too Fast, Too Furious a lot. Like, it felt like of all the movies, aside from the technology aspect of it, just like the sort of the style, and there's a lot of boats and stuff early on. Like, it felt very Too Fast to me, and especially like the intro credits, which I think it skips forward on Netflix if you watch the next one, but it's like that chrome sort of like gear shift, and I was like, that's very Too Fast as well. I was getting a lot of Too Fast vibes here, which I'm sure that almost no kids who watch this have seen Too Fast, Too Furious, but
Yeah, I was wondering that too because so it's doing a lot of fan service to us. I almost want like Nico and Kevo to watch this before Fast and the Furious. I want to know like what a fresh brain would think about this because you have to assume that like a kid's gonna watch this and have never seen any of the movies, right? Or like just seen them in passing while their dad's watching them.
I mean, I think that this is sort of geared specifically toward people like Justin, and I want to hear what Justin's kids think of this because he was saying that they were going to dig in, the weekend after Christmas, so with this past
Yeah.
weekend. It feels like it's the kind of thing where parents who are fans of the show or the movies are like, oh, a property that like is sort of an entry point. But like beyond that, I don't know. I guess there's also just so much stuff to watch on Netflix. But I really wonder if kids are going to find this. Maybe voice actors that I don't recognize, like, names or whatever. They're like, oh, I like that guy from YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I don't think kids really follow voice actors either.
Tyler Posey voices Tony Toretto, right? But like, if Tyler Posey's like a known YouTuber and then he does like a YouTube video, like, oh guys, hey, guess what? I'm in the new Netflix series, Fast and Furious Spy Racers. Like, they will watch because of that. They're not like, oh, I love him as the voice of Batman, or I'm gonna go follow him over here. I think it's more like if he's a known actor or known personality from something else, they would follow him for that. But I don't think they're following voice actors like that anyway either. I agree.
Yeah. There's no real start and finish, right? It's like, where do you want to start? You want to start with the characters? You want to start with the plot?
Well, one of my first notes is that there's new vehicles in this, which I think, because remember the first lap that we were covering the movies, we were talking about each of the new vehicles. Like we got cars, we got trucks, we got boats, we got tanks, we got this, we got that.
We
Like
got
here,
everything in this.
there's like flying squirrel suits. There's like a jet suit that they have later. There's like other things that feels
Lots
like
of drones.
we had the sort of the Predator drones, but we have like the smaller drones here for the first time.
Yeah, we have like quadcopters.
It feels in universe, and it's also kind of expanding things in a new way that I was sort of, not necessarily super Fast and Furious related, but I was cool to see. It was cool to see new types of vehicles being implemented into the world.
Yeah, because like the first thing that starts out is like they're on like a boat, but like a tanker boat, right? Like what is this? Like an aircraft carrier essentially, right?
Yeah. You mean the one that they sink, right, to use as a ramp to get the car off it?
Yeah, so like they start off with like, okay, we're in the same realms, but they're like already like raising the stakes, you know? One of the things that I kind of felt weird about is that if you would strip down the Fast and the Furious clear nods, right? Like Dom being in it, all the Fast and the Furious quotables that we'll get into, that this definitely felt like a cartoon that had a script, kind of like we talk about the Italian Job 2. This felt like a cartoon that was like, this is the idea of the cartoon, and they were like, that's okay. And they're like, well, why don't we just throw a bunch of Fast and Furious shit on top of it? So it felt like a lot of the Fast and the Furious pieces were kind of like just stickers that they put on top of the series.
Yeah, I wonder at what point, like, how you blend what's presumably just like a spy. Like, I wonder what the base is. Like, if they were just spies and they wanted to add in cars, or if they had cars and wanted to add in the prop. Like, I wonder.
What was the backbone of this screenplay?
I mean, it also
That's
might
what I
have
wanna
just
know.
been from the very beginning. It might have been just, hey, let's do a Fast and Furious for kids. Like that. It's also very possible. You know what I mean? Like, it feels.
Yeah, true.
You could very easily take out all things Toretto and like a handful of lines, and it's the same show, right? Like just Dom.
Yep,
like
that's
it's
what I'm
just
saying.
in place of
Yes.
Dom, it's whatever. If the way that they want to bring this to kids is through this kind of thing, like it also makes sense to not over the top be like, well, who's this guy? Like, I don't care. Like, he's an adult. Like, I don't care about him. You know, like, I want the kids. And I think
Yep.
it's smart in that way. And I also think, to a certain extent, like, there's Ms. Nowhere, and she kind of looks like she becomes a villain of sorts. She also kind of looks the fool for a lot of it. Like, I don't think you want to have Dom. Like, you kind of want him as, like, the cool older brother who goes away, right? Like, you don't want him, in this case, I mean, cousin, but, like, the cool older brother type. Like, you kind of don't want him to be,
Yes.
like, either the villain to the kids or, like, a doofy kind of older guy because he's supposed to be cool, right? And I think there's a
Yep.
smart inclusion. Like you and I would obviously like to see more of him and more, bring in Letty or bring in whoever. But I also think there's a reasoning that I can understand why they don't have a lot of the adults and the actors that we already know because it's meant to be about the kids to bring kids in. I'm wondering if down the line, like in 9 or in 10 or whatever, if Tony Toretto shows up in a real movie.
I was so thinking this. Now, can we add Tony Toretto as a real person in the films? And I really hope so. Like, just in passing. Like, he just needs to be, like, at a barbecue. And they're like, oh, Tony's here. You know what I mean? And, like, just go with it.
Tej and Roman can make fun of him for his spy shit and whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be overt. But because I don't think he's ever going to be. And I think we were talking about last episode with Kara, we were talking about bringing Cardi in and like whether Cardi would fit as a family member. It's like, well, there's already too many people. Like, we don't want to bring in Tony as a full-fledged family member, if only because there's too many people already. Like he's literally his family. I think you could probably easily, like you're saying, like add him to a barbecue, add him to a scene here or there. Have him working with Tej or learning from Tej or whatever.
Exactly. Like, showing Tej, like, a new thing that they got, something. It could be real gentle.
I like that the first episode, basically within the first 5 minutes, they use Nas. Like they're basically doing a quarter-mile race against that
Yes.
that kind of bully kid who goes away almost entirely after
Yep.
the second or third episode. They also use Nas later, like as when they're going up that mountain, which again is sort of very Fast and Furious going up the mountain. They use Nas as sort of like they kind of turn into like a hover car, sort of like they have like the Nas exhaust underneath that they're able to sort of
Yes.
fly a little bit. I was like, that's kind of a
he has
cool
a jet
implementation.
boost, and he
Yeah.
can jump. Yeah. I liked how much Fast and the Furious, like, the tastefulness of the inclusions of Fast and the Furious shit was probably my favorite part of the movie. That, like, the things that they weren't overtly saying, like driving up the mountain. He drifts around a parking garage at one point.
After they do like a crazy Too Fast-esque jump from like one building to the other, right? They basically go from Too Fast into Tokyo Drift, or like make a jump and then drift down.
Yes, she's like, well, look, there's a jump coming up. And he's like, what jump? There's so many of these movie tidbit nods that made me really, really happy.
So let's talk about Ms. Nowhere. So there is,
This is a really interesting choice and also, like, a very tasteful nod.
and so obviously there's Mr. Nobody, Kurt Russell. There's Little Nobody, but she talks about how she's Ms. Nowhere, and they make some jokes about that. But she also talks about how she she rose through the ranks. She used to be nothing. She's like, I don't want to be nothing again. Now I'm nowhere. Like I was, promoted to nowhere. And I wonder if
Yes.
Nobody is like the highest. If that has
I
anything
think
to do.
so. I think that's exactly what they were alluding to. Is that there's like a nothing, there's a nowhere, and then there's nobody is like top tier. He handles Dom. Nowhere would probably be like dealing with kids and like mini spy shit. Although
Right.
they, have to stop saving the world. They have to save the world. So
But what I think works well about the level that she's at and the level that the kids are at is that it's not. I mean, it's still too serious. Like they're still saving the world, but like they're able to sort of have a little bit more fun. Like it's not as grounded in reality. Like they basically the show feels kind of like BattleBots meets Fast and Furious. Like there's like blades. Like there's like very aggressive. They're not using bullets. They're using paintball guns, which I was like, I guess that's just for kids. But like, why include that? Like it just feels like why would you outfit a car with a paintball gun? Like what is going on?
it was kind of a reversion that they need to like race and win, and they all kind of like cheat when they race. They might have like spikes on their tires or like stuff like that, and the paintballs were just like to fog up your window so you can't see so that they can win the race. It's like training grounds to become like a real criminal, right?
They're having fun. They're just sort of like it's low stakes, but it's also at the same time like they wind up saving the world, right? Like it's just like
Yes.
I guess everything's supposed to be low stakes, but they're also when they're racing up the mountain, and then this is when Shashi is like, who's the main villain? He becomes the main
Yes.
villain. He's like, they're working for the feds. I'll give $1 million or $100,000 or whatever he offers
$1 million,
to like anybody
yeah.
who knocks them off the mountain. It's like, are you going to murder these kids? Like, what is happening?
There's so much gratuitous violence in this.
Yeah.
It really felt Fast and Furious-y because they kill off, like, a lot of cops. There's a lot of carnage. In this one, they don't even show, like, there's not even any blood to it.
There's no bodies, there's no blood. It's just like, these
It's
are
like
like...
neck chops and sleeps kind of things. Like,
Yeah.
everybody's taking a nap. Cars just get, like, shot into the air, but then you don't see what happens from them. There was definitely, like, ones where, like, cars, like, rolled down a hill and tumbled.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're killing kids, like, immediately in this race. And they say that they're, like, young kids. So I was like, okay, I guess this is Fast and the Furious.
And it's super weird that they blend that with, like, when they're talking about, like, the spy stuff, right? And he gets the other guy's car, and there's, like, this, panel of spy equipment, and one of them, like, he's like, what tools do I have? One says windbreaker, and the icon is just a fart. Like, it's just like a butt with, like, gas coming up. Like, it's just like a puff of air.
There's a couple fart jokes in this, yeah.
The other one, like, the next thing over is, like, basically, like, tire spikes or whatever. It's just like one's a fart joke, and then one is, like, I'm going to murder the car next to me. It's like, what is happening? But then what I liked about the fart joke is that it becomes an ejector seat. It's like ejectocito, cuz. Like, again, it's
Yes.
sort of a slight sort of kind of nod to Fast and Furious.
Yeah, which makes it so much fun. They included a lot of really good, tasteful things. That's why I said, like, I wonder how much of this already existed and how much they kept adding in. But they did a pretty good job with it. And it seems like, do you think that the people writing it, they've definitely seen all the movies, right? But it feels like they really liked Too Fast. Like, it seems like they were like, oh, that one's good. And, like, maybe they, like, rewatched that one because they didn't remember it or something, because it feels like that's in the forefront of their brains as they're writing this. 2 and 7, which is very weird. Like, it doesn't really refer to, like, 8 a lot, and I get that's because, like, the storyline kind of is the same.
Right.
Trying to stop the evil hacking empire or
Like,
whatever.
Layla even kind of looks like Cade Cypher in a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes,
it's like
she
she's like what
does.
Cypher used to be.
Yeah, if you, like, animated Cypher and made her a child, this is exactly what would happen.
And gave
Yep.
her, like, a vaguely ambiguous southern accent where, like, she basically says she's from North Carolina, but she's like, North Kakalaki. It's like,
Kakalaki.
what? Why? What?
Well, Kakalaki's like a slang for middle of nowhere, kind of like the boonies.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
Oh, really? Like North Kakalaki? Like people, it's like a common parlance for implies hillbillies, but implies hillbillies. Yeah.
What's funny about the show, funny in a way that it's the same kind of funny that Fast and Furious is that a lot of the things that they're doing revolve around cars and driving just because it has to revolve around cars and driving.
True.
Like, there's the heist that they're going to do. At one point, I don't think it's this heist or whatever, but, like, Layla was like, I didn't realize there was going to be another heist. I'm like, how do you not know it's going to be, like, all they do is heists? Like, that's literally everything Shashi's doing.
job.
Like, this entire thing is he's stealing cars. Like, what do you think it's going to be?
She's literally a thief criminal
Yeah.
that's a racer. So it's like, I didn't know that there was going to be another car race and a heist. It's like, that's your whole life right
You haven't
now.
been paying attention. There's this race in the third episode. It's like a 4-lap, 25-mile per lap race, but it's also like that Shashi runs and organizes, but it's a cover because at the same time they're going to leave the race and they're going to steal a car. But, like, why put the race there in the beginning? Like, I don't understand.
You
Like,
just drew too much attention to it. You added a lot of people there, right?
Yeah.
You do the race, which you're supposed to be like the 2 fastest drivers in the world, right?
Right.
Pretty much forfeit the race because you have to go do this heist now in the middle of it. So, like, these guys are going to notice that, like, you do, like, a half a lap and then you disappear. What are they going to say happened? Like, oh, we, like, got into a wreck on the side or something. Best case scenario, it looks like you and what's-her-name were banging. But then why would you draw all this attention to the race to begin? Yeah, I'm with you, brother.
It's very weird. Very, very weird. They leave the race and go, like, Fast 5, like, jack a train, but they're stealing an entire car via, like, drone helicopter kind of thing to, like, magnetically take the train car away. It's like, this is all cool, but it's also like, why is everything so needlessly complicated? Like, it's basically, they even have the bridge where they have to save before the bridge collapses, right? Like,
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
literally the beginning of Fast 5, or not the beginning of Fast 5, like, toward the beginning of Fast 5. It's just so weird that, like, they're so closely ripping from the headlines, essentially, needlessly adding complicated stories when it doesn't have to be, because you're only telling a 20-minute story. Like, what are you doing?
That was an interesting episode for me, too. I had a lot of gripes, like, plot-wise with that one.
One thing I really liked about the episode after that is that Frosty, who's their hacker guy, has 2 moms.
Yes.
It's just, like, very low-key
I know.
inclusion and representation. I was just like, that's cool. Like, I don't, like, they're only in 2 scenes or whatever, but I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, maybe that's a foot in the door for the Fastiverse.
We saw that in the diner.
Yeah.
Because, like, Frosty's kind of, like, he's, like, at work with his moms. They were, like, both kind of excited about him and talking about him, but they didn't explicitly say it. I looked at Rachel and I was like, does he have two moms? And she's like, I can't tell, you know?
No, it was very obvious in that episode, I thought.
I don't know. I didn't know because it's a kid show, so like I didn't know what they were like. You know, they can like hint at it, but like I was unsure
One
that
of
they
them
would
basically
have.
says, our son.
What's that smell? Wanda, you messing with that Kipper curry again? That's our son stinking up the joint.
Yeah, but that could be like a friendly thing. She could be like a single mom that has a helper kind of. You know what I mean? Like they could be best friends, and she could be like our. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Later in the series, when they come back,
Miss Nowhere says, "How am I going to explain this to his moms?" And she explicitly says it, and I was like, "Okay, cool."
like, it's not like, hey, when we go home and have sex, it's not like that, but
Yeah.
it's like, but it was very clear to me, like, oh no, it's two moms have the son. I thought it was a cool sort of step in the right direction.
I was just skeptical that they would have included it in a kid's show. I haven't watched any cartoons in a decade more. So like I don't know how inclusive cartoons are yet. I'm assuming that they would be more woke than when I was a kid, but at the same time like I was like I don't know if they'd include that in a cartoon for kids, you know? Like just cuz I don't know how people would feel about it.
It's a new world. It's 2020, Joe.
Exactly. Yeah, and apparently I was wrong and I'm pleasantly surprised with it. So
This episode also has maybe the most important, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but maybe the most important bit of canon, possibly, in the Fast and
What?
Furious. So this is when they're trying to steal the codes, the information. Again, a needlessly complex two heist in one.
Ooh.
They're going to Shashi's lair, but they're also
Okay.
breaking into somewhere else. There's a bird, which ultimately has, like, it's in the Russian guy's place in this apartment or whatever, right? They're breaking in there, and they're also breaking into Shashi's lair. Like, the rest of the team is that, and then Tony and Layla are breaking into the Russian guy's place, and they see the bird,
Yes.
and Tony says, it reminds me of my Aunt Molly's parakeet, minus the bling. He says, the house caught on fire. There's a bit of a ribs incident, so shout out barbecue. The whole
Yes.
house caught on fire, but Dom ran back in to save the bird because leave no family behind. And I was like, is Dom's mom named Molly?
Ooh. I didn't put that together.
It might be another aunt. It might just be a friend of the family that's Molly. But it felt like if there's a barbecue incident, Dom is there to save the bird. It might be Dom grew up with a parakeet and a mom named Molly.
Maybe. We'd never heard him mention his mom before, just his dad. I thought you were going to talk about the idea that there's a bunch of information in crystals, and maybe they're going to bring that into the Fastiverse. And I was like, that would be interesting. But this is much better. I agree. This is, and I also like that we see like a soft side of Dom, that he's like an animal lover. Because we don't really see any animals in the Fast and Furious. We talked about this.
True. But what we also do know is that it's not information in crystals, but they use the necklace in 8 to embed the tracking chip, right? So there is a history of
Exactly.
using jewelry as something other than jewelry, as a carrier of information of some kind.
And we see Frosty here working on his pendant that's the laser thing. So
Yes.
And the hacking, the RFID hacking thing. We got some precedent with jewelry expansion packs here.
In the next episode, which is the 5th episode, Layla says that she has, quote, enough dirt under her fingernails to plant potatoes. And I was like, oh, she's a real Letty type, not a Giselle type. Like, that's
She
the
is.
straight up, I appreciate a good body regardless of the make. 80% angel, 20% devil or whatever. Like, it's the same. She's basically saying, I'm like Letty, I know what I'm doing here. I thought that was kind of a cool little shout out, little nod.
That's true too. And also, she's like really trying to forget about Tony every chance she gets and leave him. That's a very Letty move too.
This is also the episode where, like, the show's anti-capitalist messages really come to the forefront, I think, which fits.
But it wasn't. I want to talk to you about this too. The show is trying to make like an anti-capitalist message, right? How is the solution not just like fuck these billionaires? Like Tony's like, wait, we can't do this to the billionaires. And I'm like, is this Netflix trying to like get our children to buy into capitalism? Like, they're not bad guys. Sashi's like, Tony, let's go steal this. Fuck the billionaires. Spread all the money out. Let's take all their money and we're just going to disperse it to everyone. And Tony's like, wait, that's not a fair idea. I was like, how is that not a fair idea? That's the perfect idea. Like, they use this technology to steal all the money from everyone. This kid wants to give it back. He's the coolest kid in the whole show now. He was supposed to be a supervillain, and Tony's like, no, capitalism reigns free.
It is, I guess, a good message framed within crime. To give the villain of the show this message makes it overtly be like, oh, well, it's not a good idea because it's the villain's side. It's
That's
like,
what I'm
it's not
saying.
good.
Yeah.
Exactly. It also fits into the muddied kind of anti-capitalist question mark themes of the Fast and Furious. Like, we talked about this specifically with Kara on the Los Bandoleros and Fast and Furious episodes, where they're talking about how, the poor don't have enough to live and they're stealing gasoline and blah, blah, blah. There's a little bit like where Tej, makes the money spit out of the ATM or
Yes.
whatever, but it's not
Yep.
his money. But it basically is like, we're going to steal from the rich, but we're just going to keep it for ourselves. Like, it's anti-capitalist of other people, but then capitalist for yourself. Like, basically, the wealthy shouldn't be wealthy unless we're wealthy, in which case, hey, wealth's not that bad, right? It's a
Which is
weird
how the world works.
middle
That's
ground.
the perfect. No, that's just like reality. For it being so ungrounded in reality, that's the realest part of all of Fast and the Furious. Is that they're like, being rich is really lame unless we're rich, and then it's dope, and
Yeah.
nobody should take our money.
Yeah. This is also the episode where Frosty gets captured. Like, basically, they just need to raise the stakes, and so Shashi and his team
Yeah.
take Frosty because they're like, hey, we're going to steal one of your people. We're going to steal your family because you have one of our cars. We need to do like a swap, right? And it's just like, all right.
But how do they? So I don't know if I missed this or I wasn't paying attention.
Well, this is also the point of the show, and like, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt here because it's the same thing where, like, for the first 4 or 5 episodes, they're like, we're just having fun, we're racing around, and it's like, okay, plot begins, let's hit you with the entire explanation of what we're doing over like 8 minutes. It's like, well, this is dense as fuck now.
Sashi kidnaps Frosty, and the last car is in the naval base, army base, right?
Yeah, so Ms. Nobody or Ms. Nowhere has
Yes.
the car, the fifth car, because there's 5 cars they need to steal, and there's basically a key from each. The 5 of them together are kind of like Power Rangers into the Megazord, and that gives you the access to the skeleton key.
You need to form a pentagram with the headlights
Oh,
on the
boy.
ground,
Yep.
and then you spin into the hell of the earth. So Frosty's captured. All of a sudden, they just let Frosty help. But why? Why is Sashi just sitting there, just like letting Frosty like hack shit?
There's now 3 different contingents, right? There's like there's Shashi and his team, right? And it's like they're the
Yes,
bad
and they
guys.
have Frosty, and he's captured.
Right. Then there's Miss Nobody. Ms. Nowhere, again, sorry. Ms.
Yeah, Miss
Nowhere,
Nowhere.
trying, like, she's like, there's basically pure good,
Holding down
even though
the
not
car.
really. And then there's pure evil, but although not really. And then there's our family, which now includes Layla, because she has sort of defected a little bit, which again is very Fast and Furious. Like, let's take the attractive, in this world, the attractive bad girl, and then
Yes.
convert her to family, because that's just what we do with
Exactly.
Giselle. That's what we're maybe going to do with Cypher. Who knows?
Yep.
It's just like,
Exactly.
this is the blueprint. We're going to follow the blueprint. So you got
Which I loved.
you
Yeah,
have
I
pure
was
good,
really
which is
excited
not
about
pure
that.
good. You have pure evil, which is not pure evil, and then you have the family in between. But they all are doing like different things that kind of have to do with each other, and they're all around either stealing or protecting or destroying this fifth
One car.
And this is when basically Tony and his team are like, we're fully aware that this could literally end the world, but Frosty's family, and we need to get him back. It's like at that point, it's like, no, like, you get rid of the car. Like, Frosty's an acceptable casualty. Let's not let the world, like, the power of the world fall into this guy's hands, even if
Yeah.
he has, quote-unquote, like, good intentions.
But we don't even know his intentions at this point.
It's so
He's just
weird.
like, I'm trying to get whatever the skeleton key is,
Yeah.
and they don't even know what the skeleton key is yet.
Right.
They're just like, no, we can't let him get this, but we're led to believe that it's to destroy the world somehow, so.
And so this is when we find out that there's the skeleton key, which can control any tech within a several-mile radius, which then somehow they're able to, like...
You didn't answer my question. Why does he let Frosty start working with the family?
I think they're basically like, we'll trade you the fifth car. They're basically saying, like, Frosty is important enough to us that we're going to help you. Like, we don't want to help you, but we'll help you. So I think it's sort of like, again, in a way, just like Seven, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They're working against Ms. Nowhere, and even though they're not aligned with each other, they both need to get the car back because one wants it for world domination of some kind, and the other wants it to get his friend back.
Okay, so he's like, we have a trade.
It's like begrudging alliance, I think.
Okay, that would make sense. I guess that would make sense, yeah.
But this is when we find out that God's Eye, or not God's Eye, but the skeleton
God's
key,
Eye.
but yeah,
Yeah.
but basically God's Eye is able to control all technology, and this suddenly becomes a save the world mission. Layla helps out, and she's like, I guess I'm family now. And Tony's like, don't push it. It's like, well, wait, you like what? Like, I feel like this is the first time in the history of the Fast and Furious where it's like, you're not family. Like, like Jason Statham shows up at the end of 8, just like, and it's just like, oh, like, family now, I guess, right? Like, it's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
But it's weird that she's just like, I'm family now, right? And he's like, no, don't push it. It's like, well, you're literally everyone else's family. Why don't you let this girl that you clearly have a crush on be family?
Well, you can't admit that you have a crush on her.
And then the only other thing that I have from this episode is that they, once again, just like at the end of 6, are racing cars onto a plane. I call this the world's second longest runway.
When I was seeing this, I was like, oh, this is the world's longest runway. They have to put cars on the plane. It was a giant plane, and they do it pretty much identically to how it's done in the other one.
I get that there's not infinite ideas in the world, but like, I'm curious whether
Are we at the bottom of the barrel of Fast and Furious
I'm
ideas
confused
yet?
if like they're taking things from the movies because it's a fun nod, or if they're just like, we just don't have other ideas. But like they're taking
No,
scenes out
it
of
has
it.
to be. This is directed towards kids that haven't seen the movies yet, and you're priming them for the films.
Yep.
And also giving parents that are watching along fan service.
It's a happy medium, but I guess it also feels just like, it feels a little lazy in a way, right?
Yeah, I agree.
In the next episode, in the next to last episode, the penultimate episode of the series, we find out that there's this billionaire whose name is Kelso, Clive Kelso, I think, has killed Shashi's parents, and he's been working 16 years to get back. I'm like, how old is Shashi? If he's been working for 16 years, like, is he 20? He's been working since he's 4. Like, how old are these people?
You know, we have the whole, like, Han and Sean type thing, right? I would assume Sashi's, like, 21, 22. Tony has to be, like, 16, 17. Frosty is specifically said to be 13 at some point.
Right, because he's like middle school, science fair, whatever.
So, like, you lose your parents when you're, like, 6. You work 16 years. You're 22 now. You would remember them. You'd remember this thing. I think it kind of aligns. It's not as bad as Sean being 17.
It just feels like it's like left intentionally vague because we don't want to answer. We don't actually want to give concrete answers because things don't quite make sense. Because I feel like the barrier to all of this is like you have to be old enough to drive a car, but these are also at the same time kids, right? So it's strange.
Yep. I have a question for you about Skeleton Key. How did they invent a technology that controls all technologies before technology was invented? This thing is locked in the middle of the earth for 16 years.
Yep.
It comes out and can control modern day electronics. This is like alien technology.
Well, so number one, possibly. Number two, all processors and stuff are based on sand. This was found in the sand. Mitosis?
Yeah.
Osmosis?
The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Like, so they had this technology. The billionaires had this technology. I think this has to be alien technology. And I'm only saying that because I want a future where aliens are somehow involved in Fast and Furious.
I'm okay with it. I'm on board with it. I also think it would be very weird. This would be the entry point to the series. It's like, you remember Fast and Furious Spy Racers? Yeah, it made aliens canon in the Fastiverse. Like, yeah, everybody knows that.
Exactly, yeah. It would be like, remember that cartoon? Like, that's where we got the aliens from. It would be very interesting. I hope that there's some Spy Racer reference in 10 now. I really want 9 to have a Spy Racers reference. Like, somehow, that like if you watched it, there's something going on that you're like, oh, damn.
Well,
like,
the easy thing to do is just to have the Yoka energy drink, the energy water or whatever, the life water. Get one out of the vending machine or whatever. Like, that feels
I
like
want to
the
see
easiest.
Hobbs be like, oh, is that Yoka? I love Yoka. Roman's like, what is that? And he's like, it's an acquired taste. And then, like, that's it. Yeah.
Then they get to Las Vegas, which I'm like, I realized only while watching this, like, how has the real franchise not been to Las Vegas yet? It feels like such a slam dunk.
Right?
It just feels like,
Yeah.
why are we not there?
I thought the exact same thing. And I really like the casino is called the Pass Line. It's such an on-the-nose Vegas reference. You know what I mean? Like, because the Pass Line, like, craps the Pass Line, and the casino's just called the Pass Line. It was just really awesome. And then he says it, too. How the fuck have we never gotten to... Like, we go to Dubai, but, like, you think that, like, maybe the fourth one would have dabbled in Vegas at some point. Like, we just keep raising the stakes so high that, like, we can't go to Vegas anymore. I don't even think you can go back to Vegas because it's not as exciting.
This also, like, the end of this is basically Ocean's 11, where they're taking from Clive Kelso, who apparently owns 3 or 4 fictional casinos, hotels in Las Vegas, because it's Vegas, but it's not real Vegas. But it's just like the Terry Benedict in Ocean's 11, where it's Andy Garcia, you know, the Mirage, the Bellagio, and the MGM Grand, real hotels, all owned by this fictional guy that they're going to rob. It's like, well, we're going to rob all these places and steal his money to distribute to the people. Just like, well, this is now you're stealing from Fast and Furious. I guess it's not really stealing because it's in the universe, but you're also stealing from Ocean's 11, but you're also doing anti-capitalist. Like, it just, pick a lane.
It is very Ocean's 11. It's also, like, a hair different because they're trying to, like, ruin money for everyone in a grand scheme,
right,
as opposed to, like, stealing from him for a reason.
They also take another thing from the main franchise in using cars without computer chips, right? We're just like, we can't be controlled by technology.
Yes.
Let's go old school with this. It's like, yeah, okay. Like, we've seen that before, but yeah, cool. All right, I like it.
This was a very Dom idea. This is a very Toretto idea that we just have to bring it back to our roots. No fuel injection, no computers. Like, we just go old school.
And then I messaged you last night when I was watching this, when I finished this. The final 10 minutes of this show, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but, like, they ramp the fan service. They basically hit the knobs on the fan service. And, like, there's 3 or 4 things where I audibly, like, the whole, like, mostly the whole series, I was just like, oh, this is fine. You know, I'm enjoying certain things. But at one point,
Fast and Furious fans, hope you're watching.
They're like, you have 10 seconds, T. And he says, good thing I have a 10-second car. Which is not the proper use of that, but it's also like, perfect. You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
you have 10 seconds to get somewhere. It's like, good thing I have a 10-second car. Again, not exactly what it means, but also I just loved that, right? He gets up to the top of this, like, it's basically the Luxor, which is the pyramid in Vegas, right?
Yes.
The Pyramid Hotel.
Yep.
Shashi's up there with the mask on, which is the skeleton key, and he's like controlling all the drones, and he's sort of doing Spider-Man Far From Home kind of villainy sort of stuff. If you haven't seen that movie, I won't go any further into spoilers there, but he's sort of doing some stuff like that. They go up there, and he and Tony are battling, and the mask goes on the ground. Tony picks up the mask, and he puts it on, and then he takes it off. Like, after he feels the power, he's like, no, let's finish this Toretto style. It's basically almost
Yes.
verbatim. You thought this was going to be a street fight? You're goddamn right. It's like, let's not, like, I'm not going to cheat to win. Like, let's beat the shit out of each other with our fists and just see what happens.
A lot of fighting for a kid's show, for a kid's cartoon.
He lines up the car. He's like, if Dom can do it, so can I. And he's going to jump
Yes.
his car from one building to another. And then
Yes.
someone says, what are you doing? Didn't anyone ever tell you cars don't fly? And I was like, what the fuck? This is so cool.
I actually thought, I know that you just posted on social media, you were like, you asked the question, like, do cars fly? And I was like, Joey told me he watched this today. So, like, you didn't see this before you asked that question, right?
No, right. I
It's just
asked
very
the question and then I
coincidental.
did this, yes.
You made it a point to bring up cars don't fly. I think that maybe they released Spy Racers in a timeline that perfectly fit with Too Fast, Too Forever.
Possibly. Very, very possibly.
I think that they've been watching and they wanted to align it so that it came out right after the movie so that we would give them bonus press about it.
Yeah. Then at the end, after there's the happy ending, after they, they win the mission or whatever, they save the world and Shashi gets arrested and they have the skeleton key, blah, blah, blah. They joke about going to Japan. I'm just like, again,
Yes.
very
exactly.
cool. The only
Yes.
thing I think the end was missing is that Layla rides off because she's like, I don't want to be, stuck around. Like, stay, join the family, blah, blah, blah. And she says, I don't want to be around when somebody remembers they need to arrest me. I'm just like, all you need is like a governmental pardon, like in literally every Fast and Furious movie.
Yes. Yeah, and he even says it. Tony says it to her, like, I could probably get you out of prison or whatever. And she's like, I don't know. And he's like, no, dude, like, we're like official spy people now. Like, this is how it always happens.
I was sort of like, I was enjoying it, but I'm not, I wasn't loving it for most of it. And then the end, I was just like, oh, this is actually cool. Like, it's almost like you kind of need to watch the whole thing to get the full effect of the end. Because, like, if you just go in the end, you're like, wait, what is happening? But at the same time, it's kind of like the end is cool.
I think that if you're a Fast and Furious fan and you were like listening to this and for some reason you didn't want to watch the whole cartoon, I think you could watch the first and the last episode of this and like get like the Fast and Furious of it,
Which
right?
coincidentally are the two with Dom in them.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like you'd be like, okay, cool, I got it. But I also don't think that if, like I said, if you like the Fast and Furious, I don't think you'd be like disappointed because it's really not that long. It's still less than fucking 8 is as a movie, like time wise.
So it's 8 times 22, so it's like 160. It's a longer movie than anything that we've covered so far, but not, it's under 3 hours, but it's like it'd be the longest thing, but it's doable.
And you split it up because it's like kids episodes and you don't really need to pay attention the whole time, although it hits the nods in some parts. Like some parts are like very slow story wise, some parts are very fast story wise, but for the most part, like you could blow through this really quick. So,
any other thoughts about Fast and Furious Spy Racers that we have not covered yet? I think I covered everything that I had in my notes in terms of fast connections and stuff like that. Fast connections.
When they go into Sashi's house, they break in to find the code. So he goes into Sashi's fridge and pulls out a frozen yogurt whipped cream canister and sprays it in his mouth. And I was like, Whippets. He's doing Whippets in Spy Racers, just like we should. Also, there was like a flat earther joke at some point, and I was like, oh, that's very interesting. Because I didn't know which way this was going with the like begrudging socialism's bad, capitalism's good type you know what I mean? Like this whole gray area of like what they're trying to pitch to kids right now. The last thing,
Yep.
how fucking Brian of this story is it? He falls in love with Layla. That was his So Brian moment. He might be a Toretto, but he has a little Brian in him too.
Falling in love with forbidden fruit.
He goes to watch them. That's his mark. He's going to infiltrate the gang, and you fall in love with one of them. Good
Yeah.
job, Brian.
Yeah.
That's like top tier Brian moves to do.
That's so Brian.
I think that was a quick rundown of everything else I had going on that we didn't talk. Oh, and they're in the LA Aqueducts, which I don't think that we ever get to in Fast and the Furious, but they're in every other movie ever.
Yes.
Right? So I was glad that like Fast and the Furious did go to the LA Aqueducts somehow.
Yeah. Well, Joe, in 2 weeks, our next pit stop is something we talked about. We teased for a while. We thought we were going to do it earlier in the lap. We could not get our ducks aligned just because the timing wouldn't work out. But we are finally, in 2 weeks, going to be talking about Tammy and the T-Rex, the gore cut. Very exciting to finally get to that after the timing
I'm
of Black
so
Friday
excited.
just didn't quite work out. But
Yes.
Tammy and the T-Rex coming at you in 2 weeks after next week. We talked to Cara Gale Regan about the fate of the Furious. And I'm very curious to see, because, after last week's episode where she keeps saying, recency bias is putting the most recent one her favorite, like if Fate is going to be the same or if she's going to have problems with Fate, like we're going to find out.
I don't know, man.
It's interesting.
And watching it with a fresh set of eyes and like with someone that's just getting into the thing, I'm curious to see if she really likes it, what she likes about it, what she doesn't like about it, and she's a wild card, man. Like she can go any possible way in this. So
next week is Fate of the Furious, 2 weeks Tammy and the T-Rex. But for all things Too Fast, Too Forever, you can go to cageclub.me, facebook.com/TooFast2Forever, or at TooFast2Forever on Twitter and Instagram. Email us, family@cageclub.me. Check out our Patreon page at TooFast2Forever.com. Come back next week for the Fate of the Furious. We've got that, and then again, don't forget, we've got Hobbs and Shaw, so we're not quite at the end of the ride-along lap. And also, we got a special sort of bonus thing coming at you, an extra bonus thing that we will talk about after the lap is over. But we, a little bit of a scheduling change, sort of. So just, there's one more pit stop after Tammy, like a scheduled pit stop, and then there's going to be another unscheduled pit stop that you and I talked about very briefly a couple days ago, Joe, that you named very well. We're going to be doing that after lap 5 is over to sort of have scheduling and calendars aligned for all year this year.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about this. Yeah.
But lots of fun things coming at you in the next few weeks, and then we are just a couple months away. I think 2 months away from this week. In 2 months from this week, we kick off lap 6, so it's not that far away. So if you're out there and you want to get in on the Patreon, having us cover something, do that. The time is now.
True.
I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I'm Joe too.
And we'll see you next time right here on Too Fast, Too Forever.